The question of forced marriages and conversions brings us to really consider, and I would like our speakers, we have an eminent list of speakers here, to consider this. What is forced marriage and what is a forced conversion? When do we take this as the line that determines? And for me, of course, anything where you have children who are under the legal age of marriage has to be considered forced. So it also brings us, I'm from Shirkatka, which is a women's rights organization. We believe a forced marriage is not just making you enter into a marriage, but when you cannot exit a marriage, it is equally one of forcing you to stay within that marriage. The second major question is, what is the age of consent? So which age are you reasonably allowed to, does the state accept that you change your religion or that you get married? So speaking on this, we have a wonderful list of panelists, starting with Her Excellency Ms. Wendy Gilmore, who is the High Commissioner for Canada and who will be talking in the context of Canada. So we have Wendy, if you can just raise your hand. Sorry, we're being very informal here so that people know and recognize who you are. We have Dr. Yulina from Olchab online. We have Dr. Qibla Ayaz. We're very honored to have him, who is the chairperson of the Council of Islamic Ideology. We have Peter Jacob, who is the director for the Center for Social Justice. We have Ms. Kalpana Devi, who is the Additional Advocate General of the Sindh High Court and member of the PPP. We have Dr. Ira Indiras Patras, who is an assistant professor of political science in the the FCC College. And we have Dr. Nasreen Rahman, who is an economist historian, and she is someone who is committed to education and believes in the power of arts to transform lives. I love that, because I also believe in the power of cultural norms to change things. She's the director of the National Commission on Forced Marriages. Sorry, I forgot to give you the hashtag. And also, I think while we are here, we need to remember that it is unfortunate that the government has not issued visas to a number of the speakers who are due to come here to the conference, especially from neighboring countries, and we regret that and note that. We will also would request you to, I'm looking for the hashtag, so if you are tweeting or using social media, it's the hashtag AJCONFConf21. So any of you who are tweeting, please use that hashtag. So with that, I would like to call upon the High Commissioner, Ms. Wendy Gilmore, to start our conversation. I'd like all our speakers to try and keep it limited so we have some time for interaction with the audience, and also to think about ways forward to the problems we have. Thank you, Ms. Gilmore.
Thank you very much. I'm pushing all the microphones back to give myself a little bit of room. No doubt breaking things along the way. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Asma Jahangir conference on this Sunday morning, when no doubt if I were asking my mother, she would probably tell me that I was supposed to be at church this morning, but I think this is probably a far better use of my time at this point. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm very glad to have the opportunity to speak to you all on the question of minorities under threat and forced conversions and marriages. I find it particularly privileging to be here with such an esteemed panel of experts and representatives from Pakistan and UK and elsewhere, because I think this is an issue that impacts all of our societies, not just here in Pakistan, not just in South Asia, but in many countries around the world. Early and forced marriage is an issue even in Canada, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. When I was looking up statistics of what actual impact this had in my own society, there is about 1% of all girls in Canada are married before the age of 18. It doesn't feel like a very large number, but when you look at it with unaggregated data, it is actually a significant number of people. We've made huge strides over the years. In 1956, 71 girls out of 1,000 were married before the age of 18. By 1990, that was down to 10 girls out of 1,000 that were married before the age of 18. But that number has remained fairly steady since that time, and so that it does indicate that there's a lot more work to be done. In Canada, nearly all of the early marriages are either in our Aboriginal communities, so Canadian First Nations, or in small religious groups that are in a couple of provinces, primarily British Columbia and Quebec. Why that is for a number of different reasons. Some of it is societal and cultural. Some of it is a result of expectations of parents. In many cases, especially in our Aboriginal communities, it's as a result of poverty and lack of opportunity, and because of broken families in other areas. So it's really important to try and unpack this issue, and I'm sure we will be hearing from the rest of the panel members far more in great detail. But over the course of the globe, about 12 million girls are forced into marriage before their 18th birthday. As I said, it's an issue across the globe, but most prevalent in South Asia and in sub-Saharan Africa. And a big part of that is due to poverty, and it's due to marginalized communities. It is something that has immediate and very devastating impact on young women. Women that are married, girls that are married before the age of 18, tend to have less control over their bodies, less control over family planning, family spacing, the decision to have children. They are more likely to be out of school. They are more likely to be impacted by the adverse effects of pregnancy because their bodies are not yet ready to carry children. It limits their choices going on for the rest of their lives. If they don't have an education, if they are forced into marriage, if they are not able to complete their schooling, they're not able to have access to the type of jobs, professional opportunities, access to income that other women do. This is particularly devastating for marginalized communities, as I said earlier, particularly for here in Pakistan, that is religious communities. In Canada, it can be on occasion ethnic communities. And so it really deserves our attention. I'm always encouraged when I speak to a forum like this to do a little bit of public education on Canadian programming. We have in Canada, and I think many people know, we have a feminist foreign policy. We have a feminist international assistance policy, which means that we place the rights of women and girls at the center of our decision making in our policy-related decisions and our programming decisions. So what we're trying to do here in Pakistan, as we are around the world, is work with organizations that are able to engage with young women and in these communities to try and help address the underlying causes of these issues. But the bottom line remains that this is something that we all have to address. It is not simply a religious question. It is a question that transcends religions, and it really has at its heart poverty and inequality. And if we are able to get at that, then we try and create the opportunities, the educational opportunities, the professional opportunities, so that parents value educating their girls, so that girls themselves are in a position to make informed choices. This is something that the governments have to support at every level, and something certainly that the Canadian government will continue to support. So I'm going to stop there for now to try and respect my 5 minutes or so, and so we can hear from the rest of the panel, but I really look forward to the debate and having the opportunity for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Because we're hoping to have a discussion with you, we're asking speakers, thank you so much for keeping to the shortened time. I think here we have recognized, the Supreme Court of Pakistan has also recognized that being threatened and being excluded, having less space, it's not just a question of age of marriage and conversion. And the Supreme Court has given specific instructions in 2014 regarding the protection and the promotion of the rights of our religious minorities. I would also like to mention that CEDAW, the Committee on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women on Pakistan's fifth periodic report in 2020 also has in almost every area of concern identified the need to do more regarding women from different minorities, and they're talking about religious and ethnic and other aspects as well. But I think the attempt here to move forward, there's been a lot of concern among local civil society who've raised their voices regarding the forced conversions and marriages taking place in Pakistan. And there's been attempts, unfortunately, which have not succeeded so far, in bringing about legislation to deal with this. And on this topic, then, I would like to ask Peter Jacob to come and tell us a little about where the bill is today, what happened, what he thinks is the reasons this did not go through as we move towards Pakistan specifically. Thank you, Peter. Peter is an activist, longtime activist, human rights activist, and for minorities, a longtime colleague in the struggle for human rights for all.
Thank you so much, Farida, for this generous introduction. Members of the panel and everyone, good morning. I would like to begin by my appreciation for the organizers of this conference who have turned the living memory of struggle of Asma Jahangir into an event that will go a long way in collecting, bringing the activists and defenders of human rights together to impress upon the issues that we still face as challenges, as the title of the conference goes. My second observation, because we were talking about the bill, Farida has indicated, she has pointed out to a definition of forced conversion, which can be elaborated again, but she has very wisely given me a topic on the bill which was somehow turned down, rejected, dismissed, was the language used by a parliamentary committee on the forced conversions. Now, this marks the turning down, basically, of recognition, the short-lived recognition that came about the problem. The rest of the time, there was a long denial that there were any issues with regard to freedom of religion and particularly forced conversions. With this rejection of the bill of a committee which was formed by the two houses and across the parties, across the faith communities, across gender, actually was a sabotage of the agenda of people's protections. It goes without saying that I don't recall in past 20 years when the Parliament of Pakistan discussed the serious question of religious freedom. On the other hand, it has time and again passed resolutions and legislation which goes to restrict the religious freedom, whether it is in the form of cybercrime laws, blasphemy laws, and many other resolutions which go to constitute, not only constitute, but perpetuate a preferential treatment of majority, but conversely, everybody, discrimination against everybody. Now, with this bill, what happened was that the criminal element who organized in an organized manner perpetrate forced conversions of young girls from Sindh and Punjab mainly, but not limited to these provinces. That is the data which Center for Social Justice showed by analyzing 162 cases up to 2020. But this rejection of the bill also emboldened the criminal element, and that is why in the ongoing year we have a spike. We see a spike in reported cases of forced conversions. So far, there have been 38 cases reported this year. Now, whatever we hear from the parliamentary committee, which was a great sabotage, I must say, and we can recognize, we know the elements who forcibly and arrogantly, I must say, rejected the bill. We also that it killed the hope for better Pakistan for some time until activists like yourselves revive that strength and spirit to fight against the injustice. I would also like to point out that while we have made our parliament redundant and the committees, human rights committees, and it is not without notice that the functional committee of the Senate on human rights was turned into a standing committee, which meant curtailing the powers of that committee. I would also like to mention here that we need to see what competence and jurisdiction those committees and some of the institutions that were involved. Now, my due respects to Dr. Qibla Ayaz and his institution, the Council of Islamic Ideology. I must say that legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, the Council of Islamic Ideology had any jurisdiction with regard to forced conversions of minor girls is a question. And that is why it is not only a question of jurisdiction. I must also stress that Ministry of Religious Affairs, which has been part of the problem rather than solution, has failed to show any impartiality on this. That is why they have not shown their impartiality on this, and that is why the inquiry into the matter was half-baked, was half-hearted. It never brought the facts to the light which would guide us, which would guide the nation as to how to solve this problem. The professional competence of the committee itself is manifest in the report, which lacks basically the data. So when the committee members said that they did not find any evidence of forced conversions, my question is, where did they look for the evidence? They did not look at the evidence. There are court verdicts, there are prosecution records, there are records of the Darul-Amans, and there are victims basically, some of whom were speaking before this conference. We showed their witnesses of the victims and their families. So I would say that we need to come out of this denial, first of all. And secondly, address the matter objectively. Where in the world have the human rights abuses been ignored this long? It has been a story of 70 plus years. The forced conversions were earliest complained by the first law minister, Jogendranath Mandal, and on and on. And that is why I would say, you see this short-lived recognition by the government of the problem needs to be investigated in an objective manner and then brought to the House to make it into a legislation that would put a permanent stop to not only forced conversions, but all violations against freedom of religion or belief. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I'm sorry, I am trying to keep to the time, so you'll excuse me so we have the next session. With that, I think the most appropriate person is Dr. Qibla Ayaz to come in, and partly I think it's useful to know what is the role of the Council of Islamic Ideology in such matters, and does it have jurisdiction? But also, more importantly, what is the religious perspective on conversions, and what is an appropriate age of marriage? I know that Islam does not allow, under any circumstances, forced marriages. You need to have consent. So what if you would like to come and elaborate, we'd be happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Excellency from Canada, my very good friend Peter Jacob, distinguished panelists, the delegates of the conference, a great morning indeed that we are gathered here under the name of an organization attributed to the most courageous woman of Pakistan, Asma Jahangir. A candle in the wind, indeed. I have been asked to highlight the role, the relevance of the Council of Islamic Ideology in the bills like the bill on forced conversion. Article 2 of the Constitution very clearly says that Islam is the state religion of Pakistan. Chapter 9 of the Constitution, 2 to 7, 2 to 8, and onward, say that no law repugnant to Quran and Sunnah will be constituted, will be made part of the legal dictum, legal rules of Pakistan. And the role has been assigned to the Council of Islamic Ideology. The forced conversion bill has certain clauses on which Council of Islamic Ideology has shown assent, has appreciated, and that is that forced conversion in any form is not allowed in any religion, including Islam. And punishment proposed by those who are committing forced conversion are in any way they are party to the process of forced conversion are liable to penalty. Council of Islamic Ideology has very openly agreed to it. But then there are problems in the process of conversion by choice, conversion which is not forced, in which there are certain clauses to which a joint committee of the Ministry of Religious Affairs and the research wing of the Council of Islamic Ideology showed and expressed reservations, like waiting for 90 days, appearing before a session judge, and a series of clauses which, of course, from Islamic point of view, can give rise to a number of problems. Because the acceptance of another religion, converting to another religion by choice, the clauses in the proposed bill are problematic in the opinion of the research wing of the Council of Islamic Ideology. Because there are certain attached practices, religious practices with conversion, and if one is obliged to wait for 90 days, then in the case of death, for example, the issue of inheritance can crop up. Which religion would be adopted in such a situation? The cases, for example, of the religious practices, the method of offering funeral, all these sort of things are questions which need to be addressed. We have agreed that as far as the bill is concerned, this is need of the time, but our suggestion is that instead of giving this bill a title of forced conversion, we can say regulation of religious conversion. Because if we say forced conversion, it would mean that we are agreeing to the problem that Pakistan has the problem of forced conversion, while our opinion is that may be a case or two, but in general, this problem does not exist in Pakistan. There are reports from Sindh, some parts of Sindh. There are reports from some sort of Punjab, but no report from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, no report from Balochistan, no report from Islamabad, no report from Gilgit-Baltistan. So this is a specific problem of a certain area which needs to be addressed, as Anwarul Haq Kakad committee has suggested, through some sort of administrative measures. Our suggestion is that we are open, Ministry of Religious Affairs, Council of Islamic Ideology, and we can together with the support and guidance of the Center for Social Justice and the Ministry of Human Rights, we can sit together, and we hope that we will be able to together develop a bill which will be implementable, which will not be controversial, and which would, in a better way, solve the problem which exists in some parts of Pakistan. These were some of my words which I wanted to share with you. I thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Kibla. I'm very happy to hear that the Council of Islamic Ideology is happy to sit down with the Center for Social Justice, and I hope some of the rest of us who may not be in Peter's organizations, the lawyers, the experts, you do realize, of course, that between Sindh and Punjab, that's more than 75% of the population of Pakistan. So I think we can agree that this is a problem. I think one should not hide from the facts. If we hide from the facts, we will never be able to address them. So I would say that we have people who've done research, and yes, there's two sides, and we will be hearing about the social, economic, the other aspects of it. But coming to the legal positions and how to go forward, I'd like to ask Dr. Elena, are you online? I don't see her online. Can we have her back online, please? There you are. Who is the founder of the Coalition for Genocide Response, and she's also a senior researcher for the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Pakistani Minorities. So perhaps we can have your input on what is the way forward in terms of the contentions and taking this forward legally. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing this important conference, and big kudos to the co-panelists for their contributions. Child and forced marriage are an issue that is...
You're going to have to speak closer to your mic or increase the volume. We're having difficulty hearing you.
Sure. Thank you very much for organizing this important conference, and big kudos to the co-panelists for their contributions. Child and forced marriage are an issue that is still omnipresent. This despite the international standards on the issue and indeed the international recognition of forced marriage as a type of modern-day slavery. Only a few days ago, the House of Commons here in the UK debated marriage and civil partnership minimum age bill. Still today, the law in England and Wales means that people can get married at 18 or with parental consent at 16 or 17. But there is no law against religious and cultural ceremonies, which are not registered with local councils and can take place under the age of even 16 and 17. The new bill would make all marriages and civil partnership under 18 illegal. And this is not a particularly massive issue in England and Wales, but according to research, for example, in the last 12 months alone, there have been 76 cases of child marriage, and that also, in one of the cases, that the child was 7. So this is the situation in the UK. However, I wanted to focus on one particular issue here today, and that's an issue that I've been working together with the all-party parliamentary group on Pakistani minorities, and that's the issue of abductions, forcible conversions, forcible marriages of religious minority women and girls in Pakistan. In recent years, and specifically in recent months, media outlets covered a number of stories involving young girls who have been abducted, forcibly converted, forcibly married and abused. And while those stories are tragic, the cases are not isolated occurrences. While the abductions, forced conversions, forced marriages and abuse are perpetrated by individuals, the fate of religious minority women and girls is often sealed, as the existing laws or handling such cases deem any legal recourse unavailable or ineffective. For example, in one of the cases, the family of a 14-year-old girl, age Y, have worked tirelessly trying to get her back. In her case, the court dismissed a petition to have the marriage and forced conversion overturned, reportedly stating that a girl is ready to marry after she has had her first period. In another case, another 14-year-old girl, MS, faced a similar fate. Her family has been taken to the courts, has taken the case to the court. Initially, the Sessions Court directed that the girl be rehabilitated in a women's shelter. However, later the Lahore High Court overturned this decision and ordered that the 14-year-old girl be returned to her abductor. She has since escaped from her abductor. Most recently, there is another case of a 15-year-old girl who was also abducted, forcibly converted and married to a man twice her age. Her family has been trying to get her back with assistance from the police, however, they have been unsuccessful. In other cases where the families managed to get their daughters back, there may be other challenges preventing the girls from returning to their lives, as in the case of PM, the then 14-year-old girl who was abducted, forcibly converted, forcibly married to her abductor as well. Her family took to the courts in an attempt to reunite her with the family. In this case, the Lahore High Court affirmed that an underage girl lacks capacity to convert and ordered that she be returned to her family home. However, since then, she had to flee her home because of threats she received, as she was considered to be an apostate. These few cases have received international attention, whether through media or NGOs assisting the families and the girls. However, in Pakistan alone, research suggests that more than 1,000 women and girls from Hindu and Christian communities are abducted, forcibly converted to Islam and forcibly married to their captors every year. Each of the girls share the same fate of abduction, forcible conversion, forcible marriage and abuse. They also share similar characteristics, all young, underage, belonging to religious minorities. And these stories continue to be invisible. And the issue definitely requires further attention. And as reported in December 2020, Prime Minister Imran Khan ordered an investigation into religious minority girls' forced conversions. However, according to the reports, this inquiry launched in 2019 appears to look at 2 cases in isolation. And one would expect more commitment and action considering the ever-growing number of reports on the issue. Currently, any efforts to address the issue are predominantly reactive. Little proactive effort is expended to prevent such treatment of religious minority women and girls in the first place. The first step to address the issue must be the recognition of the issue for what it is. This should help to identify the tactics and red flags of such conduct. Second, states must ensure that police forces are trained and equipped to investigate and respond to such cases. This includes not only securing the timely return, but also ensuring that the perpetrator is investigated, prosecuted for the abduction, forced conversion, forced marriage, and abuse. Third, laws that enable or accommodate such treatment of women and girls, empowering the perpetrator, need to be repealed or amended as soon as possible, and new laws introduced to provide better protection to the targeted religious minority women and girls. To explore the issue further, Lord Alton of Liverpool, a crossbench peer at the UK House of Lords, together with the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Pakistani Minorities, launched an inquiry into the issue that aimed to identify the needed responses. The inquiry took place in the first part of 2021 and considered several oral submissions, had also an open call for written submissions and desktop research, and collected evidence from tens and tens of witnesses. This report is going to be published next week, and I'll be happy to share a copy with you all. The report includes several recommendations on how to address the issue that should be taken into consideration and hopefully follow up on. So hopefully I'll be sharing the report very soon. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be very happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think what's very important, please go ahead. I think what is important is bringing us back to the reality of what happens on the ground, and I think the issue of abductions is also important. And the thing is that once somebody is abducted in our society here, even if she does want to go back to her family will not accept her. There are all kinds of social and economic dynamics at play, and to talk more about them, I'm going to invite Dr. Ida, who is a researcher, who has done a lot of work on this, to talk about the realities on the ground and the socio-cultural economic aspects of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing this conference and giving visibility to this very important subject. So I would like to draw your attention to the issue of multiple marginality. These minority communities are subjected to generally in Pakistan, and these marginalities are stemming from social division. चाहे वो class, caste, gender, religion हो, तो they are somehow the other positioned at subordinated place. So that, and we live in a society which is determined by socio-religious hostilities. There is no, we cannot stay blind to our lived realities, to our challenges minorities face every now and then. And then you need to situate the problem of early, forced conversions or religious conversion in that society. By situating this problem, I would like to draw your attention to the gender dimension. What I have done my research and did a few in-depth interviews, and I came to know that, there is a kind of tension between women choices and patriarchal community claims. So it's a very difficult, it's a very thin line to substantiate, as Dr. Qibla Ayaz has said, but then there are other, difficulties that it's a kind of one-way conversion. Like minority women, especially, they are coming from poor, downtrodden communities, and economic issue, financial disparities they face every now and then. They are not going to school, they are underage, they cannot make informed decision, they have nothing else to look forward. और फिर अगर शादी हो जाए तो शादी is the be all and end all road to happiness, and then they get to that kind of attraction. But then again there is as I said, we live in a society where we come across socio-cultural problems, hostility, religious discrimination, and we face this kind of even girls who get who marry Muslim men, and then their life journeys are not easy. They have to navigate through uneven terrain. Like as Dr. Qibla Ayaz, you have discussed the issue of rituals at the time of funerals or other things. So I have seen in my own research the girls who have even converted to Islam, but again there's a strong shadow of lower caste that lurk throughout their lived experiences. कि उनको चूड़ी कहना, these kind of cliches, derogatory cliches are still used against them. And then there's a question कि जब मर जाओगी तो who is going to जनाजा पड़ेगा? Because that kind of religious identities are strongly inscribed in themselves. So there's a very little space. We live in a society, very little space is given to interfaith alliances. So these are the problem. And then there are intra-community patriarchal restriction faced by minority women within their community, because there's a strong resentment among minority community कि हमारी लड़कियां उधर जा रही हैं. So they want to control, but at the same time they are venting out their resentment by controlling and curtailing the choices of women. But then there are strong questions that revolve around early marriages. Then I also would like to relate it to the issue of personal laws of religious minorities, which are still not implementable. Sometimes rules of procedures are not made. So there is no kind of protection, legal protections which need to be. If there are certain areas where we come across hearing complaints that it is a forced marriage, but in the court of law girls go and then they make a claim that they are doing it by free choice. So there is this friction keeps on moving. So we have to be very objective in analyzing these stories, because devil is in the detail. But at the same time, because very little space is given to interfaith marriages, so that a kind of hostilities, these girls are being pressurized throughout their lived careers, because girls have to negotiate, they have to change their name, they have to change their dresses, they have to change their social behaviors. So these are the kinds of things which I would like to draw your attention to it. And as I said, that we need to see this problem from multiple dimensions, because we have to situate this problem in a country or in an environment which is already, when there are socio-cultural, religious divisions, strong religious polarization, so they further compound these phenomena. So, shukriya.
Thank you so much. I think Ira's points about the dimensions within you live and you negotiate and mediate your life, navigate it, the various power dynamics, because it is also power, it is not just socio-cultural. All of that has a very strong power dynamic. But exclusions and inclusions of majority, minority are not limited to Pakistan. And I'd like to now call on Dr. Nasreen Rahman to talk about the kinds of issues that we're facing in terms of forced conversions and marriages in the context of the United Kingdom. Dr. Nasreen?
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. I here address Asma's spirit, which presides over this gathering, her colleagues and friends, the foot soldiers of the human rights community in Pakistan, honorable judges, excellencies, friends, and comrades. It is indeed an honor for me and a privilege to speak here. But before I go any further, I would like to thank the team at AGHS and the others who've organized this conference. Bravo, all of you. Asma would have been very proud of what is happening here for the past 2 days. So I am going to speak mainly about forced marriage in the UK, but I think it has some ramifications for what is happening in Pakistan. So the intersection of forced marriage and religion. Now, marriage, of course, is one of the most important relationships that human beings enter into in a lifetime. So in the UK, what is a valid marriage? There must be proof of capacity, which is that you must be able to understand mentally what it means to be married. कि आप ये समझते हैं कि शादी का मतलब क्या है? Have you attained the legal age of marriage, the age of consent? which is 18 in the UK, but I will turn to certain lacunas in the law later. And it's not very clear what it is in Pakistan, because the legal community, the cultural communities, and the religious communities are giving different messages, which indeed is also the case in the UK. Now, both parties to the marriage, and this is very important where forced conversions are concerned, both parties to the marriage must give their full and free and informed consent. And there must be proof of full, free, and informed consent. And the marriage must be entered into in the presence and authorized by a recognized officer of the law and the Registrar General in England. And those people who actually authorize marriages are supposed to be trained. And this is again an area of contention in England. So who are the people who are forced into marriage in England? 7 years ago, when the Forced Marriage Commission was set up, the focus was on Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, a lot on Muslims, Pakistanis, and minorities and migrants. What we found in 7 years, it happens everywhere. It happens in all communities. It cuts across social class. It cuts across religions. It cuts across gender. It happens everywhere. And with due respect, forced marriage is a hidden crime. So because we don't know, do we not know, or statistics have not recognized, or researchers have not looked into that area, does that mean that forced marriage does not happen? How do we actually find out that full, fair, and free consent has been given? And as Farida mentioned earlier, that in fact, consent is ongoing. If you're in a marriage and you wish to leave it, but you can't because of social, familial, or religious pressure, that marriage then transforms into a forced marriage. You might have given consent to the marriage, but conditions are such that you wish to leave it. और आप उस शादी को छोड़ना चाहते हैं और आप नहीं छोड़ सकते क्योंकि आपके ऊपर समाजी, खानदान का या किसी मजहबी वजह से आप नहीं छोड़ सकते, तो वो शादी जो है वो forced marriage हो जाती है. So, who are the people who are forced into marriage? Again, over 90%, 90% से ज़्यादा, it's women who are forced into marriage, but men are also forced into marriage. Now, one very interesting thing that comes before the Commission and the voluntary sector organizations about forced marriage amongst Muslims in the UK, कि कुरान जो है वो आपको इजाज़त देता है कि एक मुसलमान मर्द जो है वो एक क्रिश्चियन, ईसाई औरत और एक ज्यूइश, एक यहूदी औरत से शादी कर सकता है. So, मगर ख़ानदान जो हैं, लोग जो हैं, वो अक्सर जब यहूदी और क्रिश्चियन औरतें उनके ख़ानदान में आती हैं, they're forced conversions there. Now, the age of consent in the UK is actually 18, but parents and guardians can give permission for the marriage of a child that's over 16 and under 18. So that's a very vulnerable area, and I would here like to say that the age of consent and the clarity on the age of consent is very important, because a 16-year-old can't really understand what marriage is. And schools must teach children about marriage and consent. Then I'm delighted to share with you that just as I'm speaking to you in England, Parliament has accepted, both houses of Parliament accepted yesterday, that there's a bill to criminalize marriage of those under 18. I just want to highlight another community that is under threat of forced marriage and, interestingly, forced conversion. And that is the LGBTQ community. And what happens over there is that religious elders actually are approached by families to guide young people into marriage, into heterosexual marriage. And over there, what happens is that then those people are told that your religion forbids this, and then they are coerced into marriage. So I think that Farida is sending me lots of white slips. I thought I was supposed to speak for 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes. So I think I've exceeded my time. Thank you very, very much. And all the foot soldiers against forced marriage and forced conversions. One forced conversion and one forced marriage is one forced conversion and one forced marriage too many.
I'm sorry, as I keep repeating to my panelists who are doing a brilliant job speaking, I'm getting parchis from behind, so you will have to bear with me. And we have our last speaker, and the last is never the least. I am delighted that we have Kalpana Devi with us here today, who is the Additional Advocate General of the Sindh High Court. It's wonderful that she is, first of all, a woman, so taliyan, and secondly, that she is from the very excluded community of the Hindus, so even badi bahut zyada taliyan. She's been a former member of the National Commission on the Status of Women. So Kalpana, the way forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you. You know my intro. I'm from the land of Sufis, and I am the land of Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. No doubt I am the land of founder of Constitution of Pakistan, Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So I pay tribute to Didi Asma Jahangir in 2 lines of Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai. Sari raat subhan jagi jan yaad kayo. Sari raat subhan jagi jan yaad kayo. Unje Abdul Latif che tinji mittiya ladho मान कोड़े कन सलाम अच्छी अंगण उनंजे. मैं आपको इसकी मीनिंग भी बता दूं कि सारी रात जो अपने महबूब को याद करता है, महबूब नॉट अ मेल और फीमेल, जिससे आपका दिल जुड़ा होता है, तो शाह अब्दुल लतीफ़ भिटाई कह रहे हैं कि उनकी मट्टी जो है उसको मान मिलता है, उसको इज़्ज़त मिलती है और हज़ारे उनको सलाम करने आते हैं उनकी ज़मीन पे. हम आज दीदी के लिए यहाँ पर जमा हुए हैं और मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है. I feel lonely when our bill was rejected by the parliamentary committee. उस दिन मुझे feel हुआ कि we are orphan. कि without hearing, without arguments, parliamentary committee rejected the forced conversion bill. So, my speaker already explained properly. I think we are working since last many years. Peter, me, and my hamkhayal, we are working on it. My question with Qibla Ayaz Saab. After meeting with you, you know, we met in Natya Gali. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि we have mind like you, कि आप हमारी लिबर्टी को भी बात करते हैं, हमारी एंग्जाइटी को भी एक्सप्लेन करते हैं. My question is कि why conversion only for teenager girls? It is not alarming. Only girls, and only for the purpose of marriages? After partition, Qibla Saab, because I am from Sindh, so मैं सिंध की बात करूँगी कि after partition, I came to know my parents कि we were 50% community in, I think, in Pakistan. Now, after conversion, after discriminatory laws, my community left the Pakistan, their motherland. और अभी हम in Pakistan, I think in Sindh, we are only 2 or 3%. और ये मैं जिम्मेदारी से बात कर रही हूँ. और जब हम जाते हैं, हम अपनी ज़मीन, हम अपनी मदरलैंड, सिंध हमारी रग में बसी हुई है, हमारी रोम रोम में है, पाकिस्तान मेरा मुल्क है. लेकिन जब बार बार हमसे ये लिया जाता है, ये अग्नि परीक्षा कि हम मुहब्बे वतन हैं, वी आर मुहब्बे वतन सर. तो ये जो बार बार इन शेप ऑफ कभी फोर्स कन्वर्जन, कभी ये डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी लॉज, तो ये तोड़ रहे हैं. पाकिस्तान इज बुके ऑफ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ फ्लावर्स, पर अभी वो फ्लावर्स जो हैं वो निकलते जा रहे हैं. I am from Sindh, so definitely I would, with permission of chair, मैं explain करूँगी कि Sindh government, this credit goes to Sindh, कि Sindh government in different ways, in different times, they are trying to support the minority community. You know कि we have सिंध गवर्नमेंट ने चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन मैरिज बिल दिया, देन सिंध गवर्नमेंट ने फोर्स कन्वर्जन बिल दिया. अनफॉर्चुनेटली सेम फोर्स कन्वर्जन बिल वाज रिजेक्टेड एंड नॉट साइंड बाय देन गवर्नर. अगर मुझे ये चिट भी आ गई है, मैं ज़्यादा कुछ बोलना चाह रही थी कि मुझे लॉज पे डिस्कशन करनी है, सो समंदर को कूजे में मैं बंद कर रही हूँ कि वो जो बिल हमारा रिजेक्ट हुआ एंड देन गवर्नर नॉट साइन दैट बिल. लेकिन मेरी हम्बल रिक्वेस्ट है इस आसमान दीदी के इस प्लेटफॉर्म से, जो हमारे लिए लड़ती रहीं, जो शी वॉज वॉइस ऑफ वॉइसलेस पर्सन, उनकी कमी हमें हमेशा महसूस होती रहेगी. आप सिर्फ ये जो मैरिज बिल हमारा सिंध में आया था, रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑफ चाइल्ड मैरिज बिल, आप उस पर एक्ट करवा दें, आपका 50% मसला हल हो जाएगा. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. इससे पहले कि दूसरी पर्ची आ जाए, आई एम सॉरी. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
बहुत माफ़ी, एक सेकंड, लोग दूसरे सेशन के स्पीकर्स यहाँ पर बैठे हैं, तो इसलिए हमें बहुत माजरत ख्वाह है. Can I just take 1 minute to wrap up for 30 seconds, which is that it's clear that this kind of exclusion, forced conversions, early age child marriages, etc., take place everywhere. But coming back, and that they are always linked to socio-economic factors of poverty and exclusion, which are greater than just the simple, this is a symptomatic of exclusions and the lack of human rights for some communities. We will, to go forward in Pakistan, it's clear to me, as Dr. Naseem said, you need the full, free and informed consent for marriage, also for conversion. And how are we to establish that? So I think there are 3 things that I would suggest. You need to start the discussion. जिस तरह से पहले कहा है, अगर वो मानते ही नहीं है कि मसला है, तो वो मसला कभी हम एड्रेस ही नहीं कर सकते हैं. You need a study. Why don't you have a proper study on what conversions are taking place, what marriages are taking place, and what the issues are on the ground? Why are we so afraid to find out what the situation on the ground is and the dynamics? And then I find, and nobody's mentioned this, so let me mention it, I don't hear any state narrative against forced conversions or against forced marriages? Why is there nothing from the state that says, ye galat baat hai, ye hum nahi taslim karte hain? Thank you so much to the brilliant panel of speakers we have. I'm sorry about pressing you for time, but the next panelists are also waiting. Thank you, everyone. Bahut shukriya.